Okay, let's start with the today's session. In the last session, I have briefed you about what is the content that we are going to cover throughout the course of finite element analysis. Now, for this today's lecture, we are going to start with the assembly problems. For today's session, we will start with assembly. From today's session, we are going to start with assembly problems. So in assembly problems, we are going to cover majorly three fields. We're going to cover majorly three fields. What are those fields that you will comes to know when we'll actually solve the problem? Okay, so let me start with the first. So I will start with the first field that is known as structural field. Let's start with the first. That is structural field. Let's start with the first field, and that is basically the structural field. Let's start that. Okay, so I'll be starting with the structural field. Okay, now in the structural field, again there are three. Okay, so let's consider the first case.
अफजल माइक बंद
When
कर
you have
किसका माइक ऑन है ऑफ करिए ना
bar
सर प्लीज म्यूट ऑल
applied with axial load. Let's consider
सर प्लीज
the
म्यूट
first case
सर
where
सब लोग को म्यूट कर दो ना
let's consider the first case.
हेलो सर अपनी दुनिया में ये
सर तो हेलो
Now is it okay? Is it okay now?
यस सर
Now let's start with the first case in the structural field, that is basically the bar under axial. That is basically the bar under axial. So let's start that. Okay, we are going to start with the first, that is bar under axial load. When you have bar to which you're going to apply some axial load, so in that case, okay, what will be the value of EME? Okay, EME, it is known as element matrix equation. And what is that? I will let you know. So let's consider first case, that is structural field. And when you have a bar under axial. So let me draw a simple diagram. Let's consider, okay, this fixed support. And to this fixed support, let's say I have attached one bar. Okay, I have attached one bar. This is a bar of uniform cross section. This bar, it is having cross section area. Okay, let's consider this bar, which is having cross sectional area A, which is having modulus of elasticity E, and let's say this bar, it is of length L. This bar, it is of length L, right? And to this particular bar, let's say you apply some force F2. Okay, let's say we're going to apply force F2. Okay, so what happens when you apply the force F2? Okay, the reaction will be generated at the fixed end. Okay, and what is the magnitude of reaction? The magnitude of reaction which is generated at F2, this fixed support, it is same as F2. Okay, the reaction will be generated with the same magnitude as F2, but its direction will be opposite to F2, right? So let me call this reaction as F1, right? Let me call this reaction as F1. Obviously, F1 and F2 both are equal, but they are in opposite in direction, because F2 is the force applied and F1 is the reaction generated due to the applied force F2, right? So have you understood this case? Is it okay with the case?
यस
See,
सर
if this is the case, and if I ask you, what is the deformation at this point? Okay, that means after the application of load, okay, where this point will move, right? Where this point will move. So if you want to see that deformation when you apply the force F2, okay, your final diagram, okay, your final diagram might be like this. Try to get your final diagram might be like this, right? Your final diagram might be like this, right? So what is this? What is this? This is nothing but the deformation or displacement. So you have initially this point here. Now this point got shifted here, right? Initially it was here. Now it has gone to here, right? So this is nothing but deformation. Let me call this deformation as U2. I will call this deformation as U2, right? Try to understand. See, when you apply force F2, what will happen? This face, can you see this face? This face. So this face, on this face, when you apply force F2, this face got shifted here. Okay. So this is the initial position and this is the final position. Difference between initial and final position will give me the value of displacement. Will give me the value of displacement. And I will call this displacement as U2. I will call that displacement as U2, right? Is that okay? Right? Now if you talk about the displacement at this particular phase, try to understand. Just see this phase, because if you consider this bar, it is having two phases. This phase, this is end phase and this is starting phase. What is happened with the starting phase? The starting phase is fixed. That means at this phase nothing will move, right? At this phase nothing will move. That means the displacement at this point, it is zero. It is not moving, right? It is not moving. Is that okay? So if I need to calculate the value of U2, how I will calculate? It is given by, try to understand this formula. AE by L, right? 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, okay? 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, U1 U2 is equal to F1 F2. Try to understand. AE by L, 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, U1 U2 is equal to F1 F2. Let me clear you. It is as simple as stiffness into displacement. Stiffness into displacement is given by force. Yes or no? You use this equation. F is equal to K into X. Might be in a mechanics you have used. Force is equal to stiffness into displacement. Have you used this? Stiffness is equal to force into displacement. Have you used that? Right?
Yes, sir.
In the same manner, I am writing force is equal to stiffness. Instead of stiffness, I am calling out stiffness matrix. See, this entire term, it is not a stiffness, it's a stiffness matrix. Because with this particular term, you have one matrix which is associated with this. That's why I will call this term K. As element stiffness matrix. It is called as element stiffness matrix. This term K, it is called as element stiffness matrix. And what is the value of K? It is AE by L, 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, right? U it is called as a displacement, right? F it is called as force. So force is equal to stiffness into displacement, right? Is that okay? Okay. Now see, as I told you, what is A here? A it is nothing but cross-sectional area, right? Cross-sectional area. What is E? It is nothing but modulus of elasticity. E, it is modulus of elasticity, or it is also known as Young's modulus, right? In the SOM only you have seen, or it is also known as Young's modulus, right? Young's modulus. L, L it is called as length of element. L it is called as length of the element, right? What is the value? What is U1 and U2? U1, U2, they are the displacements. Okay, displacements. Okay, while F1 and F2, these are the forces. Okay, or these are called as axial forces. Be specific, it is axial forces, right? See, let me clear. If I call this point as 1, see, if I call this point, fixed point as 1, and if I call this point as 2, okay, what happens when you apply force F2? The point 1 will remain at its location only. The point 1 will remain there only. What happened with the point 2? The point 2 got shifted with the distance U2, right? You can see, just see this point number 1. Point number 1, it is at its same location. What is happening with point number 2? It's got shifted to new position. Okay, so it is got shifted by distance U2 by its previous position, right? Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So if you talk about, but what is the value of displacement at node 1? Is it is 0, right? Just see whether the point 1 has moved anywhere. No. So point 1, it is at same location. So there is no displacement at point number 1. That's why displacement at point number 1 is 0. What is the displacement at node 2 or at point number 2? It is u2, right? So see, if you apply this formula for this particular system, or if you enter the values in this particular formula, okay, what you will get, you will get the value of u2, right? You just put area of element number, area of this cross section area of this, E you put, modulus of elasticity you put, length you put, right? You put u1 as 0, right? Then what you will get? You will get the value of, you put the force, then what you will get? You will get displacement at point number 2. That u2 you can calculate. Is that okay? u2 you can calculate. You can calculate the displacement at point number 2, right? Is that okay? Right? Now see, if you see this term AE by L, or if you can see this equation AE by L 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 u1 u2 f1 f2, this particular term, it is called as EME. Try to understand this particular term AE by L 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 u1 u2 f1 f2, it is called as EME. Okay, what is EME? EME, it is called as EME. It is nothing but element matrix equation. Element matrix equation. Element matrix equation. And this element matrix equation is going to change as per the field. Because see, this field, it is structural field, right? This is a structural field where you have bar under axial load. So this is the value of EME. Now you might have question. So from where we have derived this? This we have derived. This we have derived when we solve. Okay, as I told you in the last lecture. Okay, if you can see clearly here, what we have covered in the last lecture. If you solve the governing differential equation, this is the equation d by dx ae by ae du by dx plus f is equal to 0. If you solve this governing differential equation by using Rayleigh-Ritz method, you're going to end with the element matrix equation. That is what is written here. You can see here. You can compare. This also you can compare, and this also you can compare. Is that okay? Is it I have written same thing? Check it. See, this is basically governing differential equation for bar under axial load. When you have bar under axial load, what is the relationship between input U and output? Okay, what is the relationship between input and output? Input is force, output is displacement. What is the relationship between input and output? That is d by dx ae du by dx plus f is equal to 0. So this is a relationship between input and output when you apply, when you have a bar under axial load. Okay, but in this equation we are not able to put the values, so we are going to solve this equation by using Rayleigh-Ritz method. Okay, so when we solve this equation using Rayleigh-Ritz method, we are going to end with this element matrix equation. Now how to solve that by using Rayleigh-Ritz method, that we are going to see in the next chapter, right? So next chapter, it is majorly focus on weighted residual methods, where we are going to see non-weak methods like collocation, Galerkin, least square, and subdomain, followed by weak methods like Rayleigh-Ritz method. So from this, how to reduce this governing differential equation to element matrix equation using Rayleigh-Ritz method, that we are going to see in the next chapter. Okay, so now we are going to directly use this equation. See, if you see the scope of the subject, is directly to apply. Okay, and not derivation based. Subject, it's not derivation based, it's application based, right? So this is logic behind it. So this is basically the case for bar under axial. Okay, now let's consider the second case. Let's move to the second case. I will take the second case. Okay, I will call this as B, second case B, when I have the bar under torsional load. When I have the bar under torsional load. When I have the bar under torsional load. So let's see, when we have a bar under torsional load, okay, obviously the properties are going to change, right? When you have a bar under torsional load, your properties has to be changed. So what I will do, I will draw the same diagram, okay, but instead of applying the force, I will apply the torque, right? Instead of applying the force, I will apply the torque. So let's see this diagram. Okay, let's consider this horizontal bar of uniform cross section, which is fixed at one end, okay, and free at the other end. Okay, now let J be the polar moment of inertia. Try to understand. Let J be the polar moment of inertia, and let G be the modulus of rigidity. Let G be the modulus of rigidity, right? And to this particular bar, I'm going to apply some torque, right? That torque might be clockwise or anti-clockwise, right? The torque might be clockwise or it might be anti-clockwise. Okay, so let's say I will apply some anti-clockwise torque. Okay, so I will apply, let's say T2 torque. See, here I applied force F2. Here I applied torque. Okay, so torque can be applied either clockwise or anti-clockwise, right? So I'm applying, let's say, anti-clockwise. Okay, so I applied some torque. Now, in order to balance this T2, some reaction will be generated at this point, right? Let me call this as point number 1. Let me call this as point number 2. So in order to balance this T2, okay, the reaction has to be generated at point 1. So let's say this is a reaction which is generated at point number 1, and reaction generated is T1. Okay, so T1 and T2, they are the same in magnitude, but they are opposite in direction, right? For every action, there has to be equal and opposite reaction. Okay, so if you are going to apply T2 torque in anti-clockwise direction, okay, then T1 torque will be generated, okay, in the opposite direction of T2, which is same as T2. Okay, but where it is generated? Where it is fixed, right? So when you apply T2, T1 will be generated. Its magnitude will be same as T2, but its direction will be opposite that of T2, right? So this is how it works, right? So this is T1, right? Because of T2, T1 will be generated, right? Is that okay? Here if F1 was generated, okay, here T1 is generated. Is that okay? Right? Now see here, if you can see, due to this T1 and T2, that see, when you apply axial force, what are the displacement that you're getting? It's a linear. Try to understand. Okay, when you apply the axial force, so when you apply F2 along its axis, the deformation will be also along the axis, right? Deformation will be also along the axis. Okay, but when you apply the torque, when you apply the torque, the deformation will be angular or displacement will be angular. Okay, so in that case, what will be the EME? What will be the EME? So it is given by JG by L. Okay, I will write down JG by L. 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. Okay, 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. Okay, into theta 1 theta 2 into theta 1 theta 2 is given by T1 T2 is given by T1 T2. And as I told you, this is called as what? EME. It is called as element matrix equation. So obviously this will change as the field is changed. So here field is same, but the problem type is different. Here you apply axial load, here you apply torsional load. Okay, so where properties will be different. So Jg by L 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 theta 1 theta 2 is equal to T1 T2. You can see here displacement was linear because you are applying the force along its axis. Okay, here you're going to apply the torque about the axis. That's why you're getting angular displacements, right? That's why you're getting angular displacement. So if I need to write down this in terms of matrix, so I will write down this as a stiffness matrix. This is to be multiplied by angular displacement is given by torque. Right? Is given by torque. Same equation I'm writing. So here this K, as I told you, it is called as element stiffness matrix. This is called as element stiffness matrix. But this element stiffness matrix, it is for torsional load. It is for a torsional load. Now let's come to this one. What is J? Just come to this formula J. See here, this J, it is called as polar moment of inertia. Polar moment of inertia. Polar moment of inertia, right? It is polar moment of inertia. Clear? J is the polar moment of inertia. So if it's a circular, let's say for a circular, how you will calculate? Okay, for circular, okay, how you calculate polar moment of inertia? Huh? How you calculate polar moment of inertia? It's pi by 32 d raised to power 4. Yes or no? Is that okay? How you calculate for circular? Let me know. If it is circular shape, this you are seeing in I think in a mechanics you are seeing, right? How to calculate polar moment of inertia if it is circle, right? Are you able to recollect it or not? Let me know.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Are you able to recollect that for circular?
No
It's
sir,
pi
एक
by
बार बताओ.
32.
सर
pi
स्क्रीन
by
बंद हो गया.
yeah. I will make it. So it's pi by 32 d raised to power 4. Right? So this is how we used to calculate. Now, next, go to the next point. What is G? Okay, what is G? So it is known as bulk modulus, right? This is called as bulk modulus, or this is also known as modulus of rigidity, right? It is also known as modulus of rigidity. It is also known as modulus of rigidity. That is G, right? Now, what is L? Just come back to the next point. L, it is nothing but a length, right? L is the nothing but length of the element, right? It is nothing but length. G, J, L, L is a length. What is theta 1, theta 2? What is theta 1 and theta 2? They are the displacements. Okay, I will write down displacements, but they are angular, right? They are the displacements, right? But they are angular. These displacements are angular, right? Now just go to the next point. What is T1 and T2? Okay, T1 and T2.
Torque.
Okay, torque. They are also known as movements, right? They are movements, right? Is that okay? Right? Now see, if you can see here, see at point number one, structure can't move because it is fixed. Okay, so value of displacement at point number 1 is 0, right? See, all of you see here, theta 1 at point number 1, there will not be any angular displacement because it is fixed. Okay, and we are interested to calculate the value of theta 2. We want to calculate what is the displacement at point number 2. See, because it's angular, I'm not able to show it, okay, by using the diagram, okay, in the front side, right? So that's why I'm just writing the values. That is displacement at node 1 is 0 because it is fixed, and we are interested to calculate what is the displacement at point number 2. That we are interested, right? So see, this is for the second case, right? What was the second case? Bar under torsional load. See, this is the second case. The second case was bar under torsional load. Our first case was bar under axial load. This was the first case. Right? This was a bar under axial load, right? Now let's move to the next case. Okay, let's move to the next case. When you have spring system, okay, let's move to the second case, or let's say third case, C case. Okay, when we have spring, see, when we have a spring, so for spring it is very simple. For spring it is very simple. You just need to write down stiffness into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 multiplied by displacements that are u1 u2 is given by force, that is F1 F2. Okay, and this particular term, as you know, it is called as EME, right? I will give you a simple example. Let's consider this fixed support. Let's consider this fixed support, and to this fixed support, let's say I'm attaching one spring. Okay, I'm attaching one spring. The spring, it is having stiffness K. The spring, it is having stiffness K, and to this particular end, I'm going to apply some force. Let's say I'm going to apply the force F2, right? Yes or no? This is a spring of stiffness K. At one end it is fixed, and at other end I'm going to apply some force F2. Okay, so what happens when you apply the force? When you apply the force to this particular spring, what will happen is the spring will be get displaced, right? The spring will be get displaced like this. Yes or no? Okay, the spring will be get displaced when you apply the force. Okay, so this is the initial position, and this is now the final position, right? This is the final position. So difference between initial and final position, that is nothing but displacement. Difference between initial and final position, that is nothing but the displacement of the spring, right? How much the spring can elongate or how much it can compress. The force, it is going, it's a tensile. That's why the spring will elongate. When the spring force is compressive, obviously the spring will compress, right? So in that case, see, I'm interested what is the, when I apply the force F2 to the spring which is fixed at one end and free at other end of stiffness K, I'm interested to calculate what is the deformation of the spring. How I should calculate? It is by using this formula. K is the stiffness of the spring multiplied by 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 into displacement U1 U2. Okay, into, I will write down this entire term, I will call it as stiffness matrix into displacement U is given by force, that is F. Okay, now see, as you know, the displacement at node 1, it is 0. See, this point I will call it as 1. Okay, let me call this as 1. Okay, this point I will call it as 2. Okay, this is the point 2. Okay, initially 2 was here, now 2 is here. So difference between final position and initial position of point 2 will give me the displacement at node 2, right? So U1 is 0. I'm interested to calculate what is the value of U2 that I need to calculate, right? How I should calculate that value? It is by using this formula. K into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 U1 U2 is equal to F1 F2. So by using this formula, I can calculate. Okay, now let me clear. See, what is this K? It's an element stiffness matrix. K, it is nothing but element stiffness matrix. Okay, it is called as element stiffness matrix. Okay, now see, what is U1 and U2? As you know, see, what is K here? First, let me define first K. It's the stiffness. Okay, it's a stiffness, spring stiffness, basically stiffness, right? What is U1 and U2? U1 and U2, they are the displacements. U1 and U2, they are the displacements. Okay, what is F1 and F2? They are F1 and F2, they are the forces. Okay, they are the forces. F1 and F2, they are the forces, right? Is it okay? Is it okay with this one? Let me know. Is it okay with this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you see, if I want to rewind this, okay, we have seen the structural field, and in that we have considered three cases: when we have bar with axial load, when we have bar with torsional load, and when we have spring. So accordingly, this equation, element matrix equation, will change, right? Now let's move to the next case. Let's move to the next case, right? So after the structural field, okay, I will go to the thermal field. I will go to the thermal field. Okay, I will go to the thermal field, right? So see, in thermal field, okay, now see, in heat transfer, you will see this. Okay, there are three modes of heat transfer. First is conduction, second is convection, and third is radiation, right? So there are three modes of heat transfer: conduction, convection, and radiation. Okay, so we will be starting. Okay, we will be majorly focusing on conduction and convection. Conduction and convection. So let's start with the conduction. Okay, let's start with the conduction. Okay, I will give you a simple example. Let's consider. Okay, let's consider this wall. Let's consider this wall. Okay, let's consider this wall. Okay, this is basically a wall. I'm just taking the side view of the wall. Okay, this is basically the wall. Okay, which is having conductivity K. Okay, conductivity in heat transfer you will understand what is conductivity. Okay, it is basically the capability of the body to conduct the heat. Basically, I'm not going into the detail of that because in this heat transfer you will learn the Fourier's law of heat conduction, right? Have it is started? Fourier's law of heat conduction, is it started in ST? Is it started in Fourier's law of heat conduction? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay, no problem. So let's consider this wall. It's basically a wall. This is wall, okay, which is having conductivity K. Conductivity K. And let's say this wall, it is having thickness L. Okay, let's consider that. Consider a wall which is having conductivity K and thickness L. Okay, and let's say this wall, I'm just drawing the 3D view of that. Okay, so let's say this wall, it is having this cross area A. I will make it, right. So let's say this wall will be having cross-sectional area A. Okay, let's see that this wall will be having cross-sectional area A. Okay, see, let's consider a wall which is having conductivity K. That means this entire wall, if you consider this wall, it is made up of a material with value of conductivity as K. See, just need not to confuse. E is the material property, right? E is a material property. Similarly, this G, modulus of rigidity, it is a material property. So similar like that, conductivity K, it's again depends upon material, right? So conductivity is a material property, right? So let's consider the wall which is having conductivity K of thickness L and cross-section area A, right? Let's say that, let's consider, let T1 be the temperature at this particular phase. Right now, let T1 is the temperature at this particular phase. Okay, and let's say that T2 is the temperature at this particular phase. Here the temperature is T1 and here the temperature is T2. Right? Now I'm interested to calculate the amount of heat transfer. I want how much heat will be get transferred. The heat will be transferred always from high temperature to low temperature. Okay, naturally heat will flow from high temperature to low temperature. Okay, so if I'm writing this diagram, if T1 is greater than T2, see, try to understand. If the temperature T1 is greater than T2, so obviously the heat will flow from in to out. So heat will flow like this. Yes or no? So this is how the heat will flow. The heat will flow from in to out, right? Is that okay? The heat will flow from in to out because inner temperature is higher, outer temperature is lower, right? So see, in such case, okay, if I need to calculate the value of Q, element stiffness matrix, it is given by Ka, it is given by Ka by L, 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. Okay, T1 T2, try to understand. T1 T2 is equal to Q1 Q2 is equal to Q1. Is that okay? Is that okay? What is K? K is the conductivity of material. This is A, right? A, it is nothing but this is a cross-section area, right? This is a cross-section area A. Okay, whatever the cross-section area might be. So this is a cross-section area. Okay, this is cross-section area A. Into what L? What is L? Is the thickness of the wall. right? Length or it is thickness. Length or it is thickness, L. 1 minus 1 minus 1. What is T1 and T2? T1 is the temperature at this particular face of the wall. T2 is the temperature at the outside face of the wall. Is equal to Q1 and Q2. Now you will understand Q1 is equal to Q2 because same amount of heat will flow from in to out. Into out. Now see, from where this is derived, it is derived using Fourier's law of conduction. Okay, I will just brief you about that in detail. You will see what the Fourier's law of conduction says. Q is equal to K into A dt by dx. Try to understand what is the Fourier's law says. Okay, simply the Fourier law says that Q is directly proportional to A dt by dx. Heat transfer, it is directly proportional to the cross section area multiplied by change in temperature divided by thickness. Dx is nothing but thickness, and that is nothing but L. Okay, Q is directly proportional to A dt by dx. So when you need to remove this proportionality sign, you need to introduce constant, and that is called as K. See, I am interested to remove this proportional sign. That's why I need to introduce one constant that is called as K. So I'll make it Q is equal to Ka dt by dx, where K is called as thermal conductivity, right? K, it is called as thermal conductivity. A is the A. What is A? It's a cross section area. That is area perpendicular to the path of heat flow. What Fourier's law says, the amount of heat flow is directly proportional to the cross section area and change in temperature with respect to length of path of heat flow. That is what the Fourier's law of conduction says. The amount of heat transfer is directly proportional to the cross section area and change in temperature with respect to the length of path of heat flow. So if I need to remove this proportionality sign, I need to introduce one constant that is called as K. That is basically thermal conductivity. So Q is equal to Ka dt by dx, right? So if I need to simplify this for this particular diagram, I need to write down like Q is equal to Ka. What is dt? Difference between temperature, that is T1 and T2. Try to understand. So dt is change in temperature, T1 by T2 upon dx, its thickness, it is L. It is L. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So are you getting same formula here? Can you see Q is equal to Ka T1 T2? Can you get it? Q is equal to Ka T1 minus T2, like that. Are you getting same formula? Here, this is nothing but same formula. Try to understand. Both formulas are same, but this is in the form of heat transfer and this is in the form of FEA. Is that okay? Is that okay? This you will see in detail in heat transfer. I'm just briefing you, right? So this is how the conduction will occur, right? Conduction generally occurs, okay, between solids. Okay, when we have two solids which are let's say attached to each other, right? When you see, let's consider this as one wall, this as one wall, another wall, and when you stick this to wall, okay, the heat will flow from this wall to this wall by conduction. So heat will flow like this, right? So that is conduction. That is conduction. Okay. Now let's consider the second case. Let's go to the second case. Okay, let me write down here first. What is K? So I need to write down here the stiffness matrix K. Okay, this is stiffness matrix K. When you multiply it by temperature T, it will give me the value of Q, right? K into temperature T is given by Q, right? Now let's see, what is K? I need to write down here. What is K? It's a thermal conductivity. Okay, I will write down here. I will go into detail. This matrix K, it is called as element stiffness matrix. This is called as element stiffness matrix. This is called as element stiffness matrix, right? Now come back to this K, right? This small K. Okay, no, not small K. See, without a matrix, this K. This is called as thermal conductivity. Thermal conductivity, right? See, from here only you can determine the unit for K. You can determine the unit for K. What will be the unit for K? Heat. It will be in joule. Okay, heat flow. It will be in joule per second or kilojoule per second divided by right? So that you need you can determine, right? A is the thermal conductivity. A, it's a cross-sectional area. Do you remember this word? Cross-sectional. This is very important. A is a cross-section area. What is L? It's a thickness. Thickness. I'm not. See, if you want to call this as a length, this length has to be parallel to the path of heat. Okay, length, it should move as heat flows. Length should be parallel to heat flow. Okay, if you're calling it as a length, it should be parallel to heat flow, right? That's why I'm calling this as more specifically thickness, L. What is T1 and T2? T1 and T2, they are the temperatures. T1 and T2, they are the temperatures, right? T1 and T2, they are the temperatures. What is Q1 and what is Q1 and Q2? Q1 and Q2, they are the heat flow, right? They are the heat flow. Is that okay? Is that okay? Let me know. Is it okay with this one? Let me know. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
So see,
Yes,
we
sir.
have seen only first case. It's a conduction. Now, see, in detail, you will see in heat transfer. I'm just bringing those equations from heat transfer into FP. This you will see. This you will see. See, this is a single wall. You can have a composite wall. Okay, when we are supposed to stick, see, you might have the wall like this. See, this is a one wall. This is a simple wall, right? I may attach many more wall like this, right? I can attach. Just take this simple example. Just take the simple example of your wall of your home. Okay, inside you might have putty. In between you have brick. After that you have plaster. So you might have a composite wall which is made up of different material. So materials are different. Okay, that means their conductivity will be different. Each material have the different capability to conduct the heat. That means conductivity will be different, right? So I will not go into the detail of that. So this is about conduction. Okay, let's see the second case. I will go to the second mode of heat transfer. Okay, that is convection. Convection. Right? I will see if you are unable to understand how the conduction occur and how the convection occur. Just take the simple example. I will just take the simple example. Let's consider. Okay, let's consider this vessel. This is basically the vessel. This is a pot. This is a pot, basically, or a vessel, inside which we have water. Okay, inside which we have water, right? And to this water, let's say I'm going to supply the heat. Is that okay? I'm going to supply the heat to the water. So what will happen? Whatever the heat that you are supplied to this particular vessel will transfer from, try to understand, will transfer from this point to this point. Try to understand. It will transfer from this face of the vessel to this face of the vessel by conduction. Try to understand. Heat will be transferred from this phase to this phase. Okay, that is by conduction. Right? Now your heat has reached to this point. That is outside surface of the vessel. Now heat will transferred from this part to the water by convection. Are you getting this point? Getting this point? See,
Yes,
from
sir.
this part of the face, see, this is the outer part of the vessel, and this is the inner part of the vessel. So from outer part to inner part of the vessel, the heat will be transferred by conduction. And once the heat will reach to inner part, from inner part, the heat will be transferred to water by means of convection. Is that okay? Right? So this is how it works. So let's see for convection. Okay, let me take one more example. Okay, let's take this as a pan. Let's take this as a pan. Okay, let's take this as a pan. To this particular pan, let's say you heat it. You heat with the help of burner, right? You start heating this pan with the help of burner. Okay, just start heating it. Okay, let's say this pan, it is having surface area. Try to understand. Surface area. Surface area. This is surface area A. This pan, it is having A as a surface area. Okay. And onto this pan, okay, let's say you're moving some or you're allowing the air to flow. Okay, let's say the air is flowing over that pan. Okay, and I need to determine what is the amount of heat that is being carried by the air. Okay, so in order to that, okay, we need to write down one element matrix equation. Okay, so as like conduction, I need to write down one equation for convection, right? So how I'll do that? It is given by H. See, it is given by H into A, 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 into T1 T2 into T1 T2 is equal to Q1 Q2. Try to understand. H A into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, T1 T2 is equal to Q1 Q2. Simple. Okay, what is H? H, it is heat transfer coefficient. Okay, see this you will see in detail. Okay, so if I need to write down this, I will call this as element stiffness matrix. Element stiffness matrix, that is K multiplied by temperature T. U is given by heat flow, that is Q. Right? Where K it is called as element stiffness matrix. K is called as element stiffness matrix. K is called as element stiffness matrix. Okay, now go to this value H. It is called as heat transfer coefficient. Heat transfer coefficient. See, this is very important. Heat transfer coefficient, because here what you require a medium for the heat transfer, right? So heat will be transferred from this phase. Try to understand. The heat will be transferred from this phase to air, to surrounding air. How it is transferred? It is transferred through convection. And for convection, what do you require? You require heat transfer coefficient of air, because the heat it is transferred from pan to air. So you require heat transfer coefficient of air. Okay, you require heat transfer coefficient of air. Similarly, you require surface area. Okay, surface area of the pan, right? So I will write on A. A, it's a surface area. A, it is nothing but surface area, right? A, it is nothing but a surface area. What is T1 and T2? They are the temperatures. T1 and T2, they are the temperatures, right? What is Q1 and Q2? Okay, they are the heat flow, right? They are the heat flow. Is that okay? Is that okay with this one?
Yes, sir.
You see, in 12th, I think you've seen the Newton's law of cooling. Have you seen this one? Q is what is the Newton law of cooling? Q is directly proportional to the A and change in temperature, right? Q is directly proportional to the area and change in temperature. Is that okay? See here, you can see what is the Fourier's law of conduction? Q is directly proportional to the A dt by dx. And what is the Newton's law of cooling? Q is directly proportional to A dt by A into delta T. So Q is given by H A delta T. Yes or no? H A delta T. So is it same? Is it same? See here, H A delta T. Is it same? H A, and this is T1 minus T2. Is that okay? Delta T. What is T1 minus T2? It's a delta T. Can you see this equation? Are you looking this equation, and this equation same? Is that okay? It is same
Yes,
or
sir.
not?
Yes.
Ka by L. You will get Ka by L. Similarly, Ha. You will get Ha. So this is same. This is same as Newton's law of cooling. See, this equation, it is same as Newton's law of cooling. This equation, it is same as Fourier's law of conduction, which you're going to see in heat transfer now. Okay, so we are majorly focusing on conduction and convection modes of heat transfer. Okay, conduction and convection modes of heat transfer. So in the thermal field, we have seen two cases. One is conduction and second is convection, right? You see, you might feel, sir, from where this equation is derived. This equation is derived by using Rayleigh-Ritz method. That we are going to see in the subsequent lectures. Again, every equation which are written, okay, this is nothing but called as EME, right? This is EME, element matrix equation. This is again EME, element matrix equation, right? Where it is derived, or from where it is derived, it is derived by Rayleigh-Ritz method, right? It is derived by Rayleigh-Ritz method. Okay, now let's move to the last case. Okay, let's move to the last field rather. Okay, so I will take this third field C. Okay, and that is fluid field. Okay, and this fluid field, it is related with your fluid mechanics subject, so you should have some brief understanding about the some terminologies regarding the fluid flow, right? If you talk about the thermal field, it is related with conduction and convection, that is heat transfer. Okay, fluid field, it is related with fluid mechanics. Okay, so we have seen the structural field. See, we have seen the structural field, bar under axial load, bar under torsional load, then spring we have seen, right? So they are basically related with strength of material, that is SOM. Okay, might be from mechanics also from mechanics, right? So let's see this C field, that is fluid field. Let's see the C field, that is fluid field. So see, when you have, okay, when you have the expression rather, or when we need to determine the flow of the fluid through pipe. Okay, when we are interested to determine flow of the fluid through a pipe, okay, how much fluid it is flowing through a pipe. So obviously the flow we are going to determine in terms of discharge, right? Discharge. So for that case, try to understand. For that case, the element matrix equation. Otherwise, let me write down some diagram first. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. I have some pipe like this. Okay, let's see. I have some pipe like this. Okay, let's consider this diagram. Right? Let's consider this diagram where we have, let's say, 1, right, 2, 3, and 4 pipes. Right? 4 pipes are interconnected to each other. Okay, somehow. And I am putting some, let's say, 5 liter. I'm putting 5 liter. 5 liter fluid I'm putting here. So obviously 5 liter will come out. Okay, 5 liter will come out. I need to determine how much it is available. Out of 5 liter, how much is available here and how much is available here. I want, because see, if it is 5 liter is coming, or if you're putting 5 liter here, obviously, okay, the 5 liter get distributed here and here. So it might be 3 plus 2, 2 plus 3, 4 plus 1, 2.5 plus 2.5, like that. In any manner we can have. It will depends upon what is the diameter of the pipe, right? What is the dynamic viscosity? Okay, so all those parameters will be there. So if I need to determine that, if I need to determine those terms, okay, I need to write down the EME, element matrix equation. So let's see there, what is the element matrix equation? So element matrix equation, it is given by, try to understand, pi by 128, pi by 128, pi by 128, d raised to power 4, pi by 128 d raised to power 4, mu and L into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 into 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 into P1 P2 into P1 P2 is equal to Q1 Q2 is equal to Q1 Q2, right? So this is nothing but called as EME, element matrix equation. Pi by 128 d raised to power 4 mu into L, 1 minus 1 minus 1 1, P1 P2 is equal to Q1 Q2. Now see, I will let you know. See, if you want the heat that is Q, if you want the heat that is Q to flow, if you want the heat to flow, there has to be a temperature difference. Similarly, if you want the fluid to flow, there has to be a pressure difference. So if you want the heat to flow, you need to maintain temperature difference. If you want the fluid to flow, that is, if you want some discharge, there has to be a pressure difference, right? So this is how it works. So this term, I'll call this as element stiffness matrix. This is to be multiplied by pressure is equal to discharge, that is Q. Here Q is discharge, here Q was heat flow, right? So try to differentiate it, right? So this K is called as, obviously it is element stiffness matrix. K is element stiffness matrix. K is element stiffness matrix. Now just see this, what is D? What is D? See this D, it's a diameter of the pipe, obviously, because of you have the flow through a pipe, so you require diameter of the pipe, right? See, pi is constant value 128, no problem. Then go to D, diameter. What is mu? Go to mu. Okay, can you tell me what is mu? All of you, can you tell me? Because in FM you are seeing. Can you tell me
Dynamic
what is
viscosity.
Viscosity.
See,
Dynamic
it's not only
viscosity.
viscosity, it's a dynamic viscosity. Okay, there are two types of viscosities, kinematic and kinematic and dynamic, right? So this is a dynamic viscosity. In heat transfer also you will see, or you need to use this viscosity. See, this is mu. I've written dynamic viscosity. L, obviously it's the length of the pipe, right? L, it is nothing but length of the pipe. Length of the pipe. L is the length of the pipe. P1, P2, okay, they are the pressures. P1, P2, they are the pressure. Okay, so what is Q1, Q2? Okay, it's a discharge or flow, if you want. It's a discharge. Okay, or it is also known as fluid flow. It's not heat flow. Okay, it's a fluid flow. Here it was heat flow. Here it is fluid flow. So Q1, Q2, either you call it as discharge or it is fluid flow, right? So have you understood this one, all of you? Is it okay with this one? All of you, is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what I just recap within 2 minutes. Okay, what we are covering in today's lecture.
सर लेक्चर का लिंक आ गया सर नेक्स्ट लेक्चर.
Yeah, sure. So we are just seeing the formulas for structural field. In that we have seen the 3 cases. Then we have gone to this thermal field, where we have seen the 2 cases, conduction and convection, and after that we have seen fluid field, where we have seen the first case, one case, right? So in the next lecture, right, we are going to start with this directly problems on all those fields, right? So we will conclude with the today's section, and in the next session we're going to start with the problems.